One in all of its audio-visual glory.
Now, the game was coming through fine. It was me people couldn't hear.
It was you that wasn't coming through.
Because of my stupid microphone. But we're up and running now.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, Pete, before we ran into the latest in our myriad technical glitches, I was starting to ask you about the subject of dementia.
Yeah.
And it's something incredibly difficult to discuss in a meaningful way in any medium, and let alone a game. So what drew you to that?
Well, I mean, probably for the exact reason like you just said. I mean, it's difficult to talk about it, and my grandparents suffered from it, and my girlfriend's a physiotherapist, and she works with patients that suffer from dementia day in and day out. And a lot of members of the team have these connections with dementia, and it comes across as embarrassing to talk about. Nobody talks about it too much, and we wanted to tackle it head on. And we didn't want to say that we know all the answers and we are the knowledge holders or anything like that. We just wanted to create that conversation and just get people talking, really.
What do you think was the biggest challenge you faced in the development of Ether 1 to make sure that you were treating this subject as delicately but as honestly as you possibly could?
Yeah, we just did a heck of a lot of research because we have the personal approach to it, of course, but to make sure it was tackled in an interesting enough way, the two main writers, Ben Hill and NJ, they just researched it a heck of a lot, and we wanted, for me, tying it into the gameplay itself was really important. I wanted all the gameplay mechanics to feed back into that. Otherwise, it would have just felt tacked on. And building an interesting world to explore, that was really important as well, because if we're trying to tell this story but the world isn't part of it, you don't feel like you're actually there experiencing the story. Someone in the chat, JH Burton, who I said before is our tech artist, his dad is really knowledgeable on the subject as well, and so we went to him for a lot of advice.
Sam, when you were reviewing Ether 1 for Joystiq, you were really struck by some of its visual and thematic tricks. You compared it to the Wizard of Oz, actually, in your review.
Right.
How did that sort of linking between active things that you're doing in the game, the actual play, and its themes, how did you experience those things as you were diving into Ether 1?
Well, I feel like the storyline is kind of, it's there at a bare minimum, which really drives your curiosity. I feel like everything about it is a very mind-driven experience. It's not like there's no Twitch-like gameplay. There's no, jumping or platforming or that sort of stuff. It's all about thinking
Sam,
and remembering.
I just want to point out I am very clearly jumping right now.
Well...
Well,
why don't you go and review the game then, sure?
Okay, maybe Pete can answer this question. Why is there what appears to be a handmade shelter of boxes and cardboard in the middle of this scientific facility?
There's a reason.
Okay, so I guess the best way to answer that would be that it's a continuous theme throughout the game's narrative.
Okay. Just like boxes in general, or is it deeper than that?
Yeah, that cardboard really did mean a lot to the person. No, just the whole diorama, the layout, the setup is just a bit of backstory and foreshadowing for the game.
Okay, but it's very much intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I understand the narrative correctly, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
but it doesn't get revealed until later. But to come back to what you were saying, Anthony, yeah, there's not like, other than what Richard was demonstrating, there's not really like platforming. It's not that kind of game. It's all of everything you do is based around a thought process. It's either you want to know more about the story, so you become curious, which again, is part of your mind, or you're solving puzzles using your mind, or you're remembering like codes and combinations or whatever. So it's all has to do with your head as the player, and of course that ties into the theme of dementia and everything that's being explored in the game. I have a quick question for you, Pete.
Yeah.
Could you maybe, just because in explaining this to people that I talked to about it, there was some confusion. How does Ether One treat? What is dementia like? Because a lot of people get it confused with like what Alzheimer's is and that sort of thing. So, for how you guys defined it, what was dementia?
Well, we try to base it around validation therapy, and like I was saying before, try to base all the game mechanics around that. So it was very much remembering important items or playing important pieces of music, and just being there and listening to the person, not treating them like idiots or looking down on them, and just wanting to accept them for who they were.
Pete, could you explain for our viewers, like very concrete, the practice of validation therapy? I think some
Sure.
people
So,
might not be familiar.
yeah, it's still very experimental, and there's YouTube videos and stuff if people want to check it out. And Naomi Fiel is a lady that works with sufferers of dementia, and it's all about, like I said, just sitting there, and I guess it's a way of validating their life, so anything that's important to them, and getting the feedback off them directly. So if you're singing with them, for example, and just feeling their movement and their tone, and say someone's banging their hand on the sofa, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're irritated or angry. It could just be patting in time with the beat or something like that. They're still trying to connect in certain ways.
What drew you when you were conceiving Ether One originally? What drew you to this sort of play style, this wandering and exploration? Because I know that you for a long time worked with Traveler's Tales Fusion, which is a very, very different sort of studio. They make a very different sort of game, with their primary work being on the portable versions of the Lego games.
Yeah, I didn't work there for too long. I did 2 different placements with them. I must have only been there like 6 months. It was more
6 months.
Yeah, just to get experience. It wasn't a full-time job. It was in between studying at university and my master's degree, and just getting experience out there. So I did the Rock Band stuff and the Clone Wars. The difference in gameplay that I wanted to tackle was, I guess I grew up playing games like Myst and just writing things down on pieces of paper and hoping that at some point they'd make sense, and those kind of things are really interesting. And coming from like playing games like Half-Life, and my mum would be sat over my shoulder. She'd be able to play Myst, but she wouldn't be able to play Half-Life. She couldn't control the keyboard and mouse at the same time. And it seems more so that there are so many inaccessible games. And so that's where the optional puzzle solving came from. I wanted to have those Myst-style puzzles in there, the real head scratches. But I didn't want to shut anyone off from the game, and I wanted, if you got to something really hard and frustrating, you could always move on. And so that's how everything became optional in the game. And I was worried that, you could finish the game with only doing 25 to 30% of the content. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to fail. People are just going to run straight through to the end. But it was quite the opposite. I mean, our artists did a really good job at creating this really interesting world, and people stop and explore, and they try and pick apart the puzzles. And I don't know, I guess it was a gamble, but it seems to be paying off.
What do you think the secret to sort of grabbing people's attention like that is? It's very, very difficult to, sort of spark someone's curiosity when they're playing a game in a way that feels organic, that doesn't feel artificial and,
Yep.
gamey, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess I guess there's no real one answer to that. It has to be immersive in the terms of visual style. I mean, people love visuals, so you have to get that visual style. You have to create a place that people like looking at. You also have to have intrigue in the story, so you have to have a narrative that grips people and makes them want to play in this interesting world. But at the same time, you don't just want an interesting narrative with an empty, good-looking world. You need the gameplay to back that up, as well as the audio. So the good thing about our team at White Paper Games is everyone's so multidisciplined, and there's not just a designer, an artist, an audio guy. Everyone has say in everyone else's work, and I think that just feeds back into the game. I hope so, anyway.
Now, I was going to say one of the things that grabbed me, that made me so interested, is that the world, and we're about to see it on the stream, the world is very bright and colorful, sunny, has that painted aesthetic, and yet the audio design and the feeling of being in the world is really unnerving, like really creepy. So the kind of juxtaposition, the opposites attract sort of nature of the world is what grabbed me personally.
I tell you what, we were tired out of our heads at the weekend. We were sat on a couch. We were in a hotel lobby, and our audio guy was beaming because you had said those words about the game, and he was glad that people had picked up on that, as it was like hugely intentional for him, and he'll be really happy to say that he picked up on that.
Yeah, no, it's a bright sunny day and it's super creepy.
Yeah.
And that's actually another thing, like added to the world. Anthony, you haven't played the game yet, right?
I have not.
Right, and Richard will start seeing some of this stuff soon. But when you're going through the world, you start seeing little like notes and information, as Pete was saying, kind of background on the world without being explicitly told to the player. So there's like you go to this place and there's a mining operation in effect in this town, and the first place you go, you start seeing all these notes about like the miners are unhappy with their work conditions and saying that like things don't seem safe, and you kind of get the sense of something horrible going wrong or did go wrong sort of thing. And it's because there's nobody around, it kind of feels like you're in this weird position of time where either things have already gone wrong or they're about to, or like it's just a ghost of a memory sort of thing. It's just really unsettling because you can't quite place yourself.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. I mean, like I was saying before, creating the world full of character. I mean, it was part of our own limitation as a studio, right? So we have 6 people, and we obviously don't have time to make a village full of people and create AI for all that kind of stuff. So we had to do the best of our ability to create a world without any actual people there. And so it's cool that you picked up on that.
Pete, I kind of love the idea of limitations being a driver of creative choices.
Yep.
And like you were saying, like you only have this many people, and you have this amount of time to make the game that you really want. So you have to say to yourself, what can we do, and how do we make that the most effective that we can? What other sort of constraints did you place upon yourself when you were making Ether 1?
I mean, I guess every decision was based on constraint. It's like, okay, how much money do we have left? How long do we have to get this area done? How much audio can we afford to do? We wanted to get some live audio in there, so our audio guy just went through the streets of Manchester, which is our local city, and just recorded like street musicians and stuff like that. Everything. I mean, he would walk in with rocks into the studio and start dropping them into a tray and record sound. Like every sound was created in our studio, and limitation of not having a sound booth to record in, and like while everyone's trying to type away our design, everyone's like, all right, shush for like the next 2 minutes while audio guy records some sound. And there's just limitations at every single corner. I mean, thankfully we're using the Unreal Engine, so the technical limitations aren't as great in terms of what we can do, because it empowers artists and designers and audio guys alike. It provides us with really good tools to create a visually interesting game. But definitely the fact that we had 6 core staff working on it, and so the art style is very low poly, all hand painted, because OJ was the only artist that I mean, our tech artist did some of the assets as well, but OJ had to create a full world of this quality, and so we needed something that we could produce very quickly, but also visually interesting. And so he came up with this style. I mean, everywhere where you look, there's limitation. It's just you say, right, we can do this, and just, I mean, because Ether One is an ambitious idea. It's an ambitious game, but it wasn't ambitious in terms of our skill set. It was just ambitious in terms of the idea. I get it, if that answers your question. I'm not sure.
No, it certainly does. It certainly does. I'm getting a little bit engrossed as Richard sort of pokes around in the corners of this place. I did see the reemergence of the crates that Richard was like, "What are these crates doing here?" And there they were. There's that little hutch that clearly somebody was staying in. I love that implied sense of history too. That moment where you see something and you think, well, clearly somebody's been taking shelter here, but there's nobody there, and that really adds to that eeriness that Sam was describing. What games did you play ahead of Ether One where you said, you know, we are inspired by this, but we don't want to copy these ideas. We want to invert expectations. What are some of the, you know, ideas that you thought to yourself, I want to twist this, I want to make it new?
Yeah, so obviously we've got games like Gone Home, Stanley Parable, Antichamber all coming out at the moment, doing really, really interesting things, but they weren't necessarily out when we originally started designing Ether One, although they laid groundwork for games like ours to succeed. So they were hugely inspirational in that sense towards the end of development. When we first started Dear Esther, I studied Dear Esther as a mod, as a dissertation. I thought it was really interesting. I enjoyed what Dan Pinchbeck was doing with Dear Esther. And that definitely was the inspiration behind knowing that we could do something as interesting as that. Well, hope to do something as interesting as that. So that was the real drive in that direction. And in terms of games, I guess, growing up, I mentioned Myst, but more recently, games like Dishonored show how you can create rich, interesting worlds. Obviously, we didn't have the AI or the powers, but just the sense of being there. That was hugely inspiring.
I want to make sure I get this name right. Malveis Vitrier. I have no idea how to pronounce that. It sounds a bit French, in which case I'm going to mangle it even more. But Mao here in the chat said the sound design is very good. And he's amazed that, all this is homemade, that you were just sort of wandering around Manchester and picking up noises as you went to sort of create some sound.
Yeah.
What do you
Go on, sorry.
No, please go.
So 90% of the SFX was made in the one room of our studio. We just have a room with all the computers in. We have filing cabinets that have been used so many times. We have a table that's been dragged across the floor and manipulated. Every sound that we hear, we're just like, oh, I remember when we did that. For the music boxes that people might recognize from the game, if they played a little bit more past the demo, NJ, our sound designer, he went to a pawn shop or a music shop or whatever it was and got two little music boxes with one with the Pink Panther theme and one with a different theme, I can't remember. And he played each note individually and then he recorded it and then assigned each recording to a piano key on his keyboard so that he could create the music box melodies in Ether One.
That
Just that kind of level that he goes to is just awesome.
That is awesome. That is so cool. You can never underestimate the importance of intricate sound design especially when you're making a game that is so fueled by atmosphere.
Yeah.
When I talking to the guys that sort of do the sound design for Telltale's Walking Dead games.
Oh yeah.
They were telling me that in order to get their zombie noises, to get these awful sounds, they would take staff members, just people who worked in the office, feed them a Snickers bar, and then make them make horrible gurgling noises. And that was it. It was just like a mix of nasty caramel, chocolate, and peanuts in their throat, and that's how you get horrific zombie sounds.
Well,
and to hear that you guys will go out and literally make your own music box synthesizer is some wonderful ingenuity. That's so cool.
yeah, I mean, we've got 200 different stories about all that music. If anyone's interested, I'm sure we can post like the creating of audio in Ether One or something like that. I mean, everything was just done in the most jankiest indie homemade of ways, but it got the job done. It produced the quality that it needed to do.
For anybody who is just joining us today on Joystiq Streams, we are playing Ether One, the new sort of surreal adventure game by White Paper Games, and we are talking to Pete Bottomley from White Paper Games right now. If you have any questions for Pete, hop into the chat and ask away. You are more than welcome to. Pete, tell me, what is something that you went into Ether One thinking this is part of the design that I've had in mind from the start, and I think it's going to be amazing, but it just didn't work. It was something that you couldn't get in the game, you couldn't make it happen. Was there anything like that?
Oh wow. Totally caught me off guard there. I mean, while I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'll just start talking. But in terms of puzzle design, there's always going to be those puzzles that just don't work. And I guess for anyone, I may be no one to speak about puzzle design because it may not even be any good. But from my experience, I've realized that the more complex you make the puzzles, the less interesting they are. It's almost the most simplest puzzles are the most interesting.
Why? No, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I guess it's because as a designer, you might just want to show all this technical skill and you lose sight of the player, maybe. But the system that we use in Unreal is called Kismet, so I can prototype a lot of gameplay. It's very visual. And I've noticed that as soon as that Kismet starts piling and it starts getting even more complex and it's harder to debug and more bugs start showing up and etc., etc., they're the most uninteresting puzzles. It's the ones that require very little technical input, but they're the most impactful. I don't know how spoilery we want to. I can't really give you an example right now, I guess, but yeah, maybe a later date.
Well, I think we could. I think we could go in with a caveat that for the next 60
Okay.
minutes, for the next 60 seconds, rather, we might be able to spoil something.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't want spoilers for the next minute, then they can mute or whatever. So, in the harbor, when you get there, which is the first lot of puzzles, there's Bell's workshop, loosely inspired by Alexander Bell. So we tried to create that history of him experimenting in the town of Pinwheel, and his fiction is the reason why a lot of smaller contraptions exist in the village of Pinwheel. So as you go into his workshop, he's got some inspirational banner on the wall, and it just reminds him that as one door closes, another one opens. And I guess that's a good metaphor as well as an actual thing inside of Ether. So all you have to do is shut the front door and the inside door opens.
Huh.
So it's just a literal as one door closes, another one opens, but it's just, that the simplest of things. And it's been one of the most interesting puzzles.
Man, it's so funny to hear you say that, because I know in my own experience, I definitely feel that way. I look at some games, and the moment that the puzzles become just insanely complex, and still logical, there's definitely a way for you to unfold it.
Yeah.
It drives me away, and
Yeah.
like something like Fez, or even the original Myst. Back when playing Myst, I was one of those people that would get to a point, and it became so, insanely oblique that I had to just be like, I give up, I quit, I can't do it. But when you play something where, you just have to do that simplest thing, that all right, I'm going to close this door and open another one, that somehow feels, rewarding enough in its simplicity.
Yeah.
Where it's not like it's not dumb,
Yep.
it's not stupid. It's still mentally taxing, but it didn't create a roadblock.
Yeah, you've done a good job with the design when people actually kick themselves for not getting it sooner. So it's that whole aha moment. It's like they feel like idiots for not getting it sooner.
Yeah.
If they still don't realize why they got it right, which is probably the worst thing, or if they didn't have fun solving it, then you're probably not doing something right there.
Sam, was there ever a moment where you just became hopelessly stuck?
I was actually stuck, I think, the longest where the place that Richard is stuck right now. because it's the opening and you haven't quite gotten into the like feel of the game yet. Like I hadn't switched my brain over into that Myst mode. Which, by the way, I'm so glad to hear that Myst was an inspiration, because as I was playing it, I'm like, this is like Myst. So
Yeah.
I was hoping I wasn't just making connections where there were none. But no, my brain hadn't quite switched over to that part yet, because I didn't really know what to expect from the game. Like if it was going to be, because the opening has a very kind of Portal feel to it. So I'm like, is this going to be more like puzzles or that sort of thing? But no, I think the place I got stuck the longest is where Richard is stuck right now, and I'm just watching the stream, and I can't remember where the note is that he needs to read. But Richard, there's a note you need to read. It's got the hint on it.
Yeah, so I think my feed dropped, so I can't actually see, but I'm pretty sure I know where you got to there. And that was an interesting part of the game to try and tackle. I was originally just going to cut it all out and just send you straight into the next area. And we went back and forth a lot on the design of this, and we tried to give as much feedback to the player as possible. And instead of deleting it, I wanted people to possibly just get stuck there for a few minutes and just so they knew what the world was asking of them. It, yeah, the easiest solution to delete it, and it did actually get deleted for a while. It was actually Gemma Hughes who's working on a routine at the moment, and she said, "No, I love that bit," so you can actually blame her for that frustration of leaving it in.
Yeah, it's the part right before the first the combination.
Yep.
Sam, this is like Twitch plays Ether 1.
The
Everyone,
chat's like,
yeah. Everyone in the chat is trying to slowly but surely steer Richard in the correct direction.
Oh right, so you guys aren't even past. Oh right, yeah, because my feed's died, so you're still up top, right?
yeah.
Oh, okay. He's not doing too good then.
Oh, he just read the note. He just read the right note on our screen. The one about miners eat on metal plates.
Yep.
That's the hint, Richard.
And has he got that plate?
Oh, he just did.
Hey.
Pete, making fun of people playing your game for the first time. I love it.
I was
That
gonna
is
say
the
I
right
like
approach.
I like how you're
No,
like
no,
I think
that
I
was
know where you're I like how you're like I think I know where you're talking about, and then I tell you and you're like, oh, you're not even there yet.
that was me being happy that he got it, not making fun of him.
I like to that. You know, once you put a game out there, you have absolutely no idea how people are going to play it. Like,
Yep.
there's just it doesn't matter how much testing you do, you never know what people are going to do. Have you been surprised by what sort of flummoxes people?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to get as many playtesters into the studio, people that we didn't know, but obviously there's only a limited amount that we could get into our studio. But like, because I had never really tackled puzzle design on this level before, it was really interesting because you've got the standard like game design curve of easy puzzles at the start and then harder towards the end, but I didn't necessarily want to do that. Because all puzzles would be optional, apart from this tutorial section that you guys are at right now. I didn't have to create that curve of difficulty, and so knowing what puzzles people find, because you have two different types of people, and one person would get a puzzle that they found really easy, but the other guy found hard, and then one puzzle that guy found hard, the other guy found easy. So it's impossible to test, but obviously you can do things gameplay wise to make them easy, harder, and then harder. But yeah, it's just the puzzles in Ether don't necessarily have that skill progression in them. And so it's definitely interesting to see what things people are doing.
Milk Slice here in the chat is saying, my girlfriend did the voiceover for 2 of the characters.
That would be Nile, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, she was an absolute lifesaver. Her name is Elspeth Edmonds, and she's a relatively unknown actress, I guess. But she just brought so much quality to the game. And there's also a guy called Ben Britton who lives in Chicago, and he played the male American actor in there. They just brought so much quality to the game. It was crazy to know that they would work for free until we could get some money coming into the studio.
What do you think? Like, voice acting is such a hit and miss hit or miss sort of thing for me, at least. I find that there are many times that you have characters speaking in a game when they don't necessarily need to. What do you think? What do you think is the sort of secret sauce for excellent voice acting? What does a performance in a game really need to do that's distinct to games?
Oh, that's an interesting one. And I guess if we're going off presuming that we do have good voice acting, I hope people think we do, but
the chat
yeah,
is very
really
appreciative.
bad information here. So in terms of what we did on Ether 1, You need to have that space that you're comfortable in, and you need to be willing to go over the lines over and over again. And one thing that NJR audio guy, he would record the actors and actresses. He would go over the lines over and over again and get the takes. And one thing he was hugely inspired by was the approach the Naughty Dog take, which is obviously something that everyone should listen to and everyone should follow suit. But it was that whole thing of, I guess the way to sum it up would be on The Last of Us when Troy Baker recorded that last scene, and he was like, right, man, I nailed it. And it was just, he felt that was the best possible line. Neil Druckmann wasn't happy with it, and it was only because he nailed it as an actor and not as what the game needed at that part. So you need to make sure that you're acting for what the game needs at that specific point and not acting for yourself.
So this is completely on a different subject. And usually this question pops up by now when we're streaming a new PC or Mac game. But something that I want to know, since nobody else has asked it, is are you thinking about trying to get Ether 1 onto other platforms besides PC and Mac?
Okay, so officially at the weekend, I found out that I could say that we are licensed Sony developers. I met with a guy from SCEE at the weekend when we were at Rezzed, and the guys at Sony have just been awesome. So nice, just always checking in and seeing how development's going. And so we were chatting at the weekend about possible PlayStation 4. So we're gonna look into that. We need to figure out a few things like software licensing, especially with the Unreal Engine. We need to figure out how affordable that would be. But Epic are awesome again, helping smaller studios get their game out there. So yeah, we'll be looking into that into the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Very, very cool. That makes me very excited. Unfortunately, I am one of those individuals out there that does not have a Mac or PC that is competent for gaming. I have an old MacBook,
Yep.
and even running something like Gone Home on the lowest possible settings, it still just chugs.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward to building a PC in the near future, but I'm not quite sure when that will be because that's always a bit of an expensive undertaking. But to hear that this might be coming to PlayStation 4, that thrills me. I will happily play that game on that system.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, nothing confirmed yet because we need to make sure if we can afford to do that first. But we all own PlayStations, and I subscribe to the PS Plus service, and it's just because I sit at a computer for 15 hours a day, I don't necessarily want to play games on my PC, even though I love PC games. So having the PlayStation at home and having access to the PS Plus services with the free games on a monthly basis is just really awesome. So we're really excited to work with Sony.
This is the third or fourth stream in recent memory where we've had a small developer tell us that Sony has really been great to deal with. Why do you say that Sony's so accommodating?
Oh, I have no idea, but well, obviously they're a business at the end of the day, right? They want to make money. Indie games are doing pretty well for themselves at the moment. That's a way to make money. But I don't think it's about that. I mean, because we're so new in the industry, this is our first game, so we have no idea about how the old industry was. There definitely seems to be a shift in the industry. For me, I think it's less about the money side of the industry. I think now that the birth of the industry, where everyone was making so much money and didn't really have a standard. I guess that's now changing over to the more creative side, and it's now about getting creative titles onto the platforms and making that as accessible as it can be. I'm not sure whether Sony have any hidden agenda or anything like that, but it does not come across that way at all. And you know, they're so easy to talk to, and you can joke with them and just chat about other things rather than when's Ether One coming to PlayStation. So it's just been nice. It's just been nice.
That's awesome. It does my heart good to hear that, you know, you can you can put a small team together, you can develop this game that has a very interesting premise, but is still very creative. It's still very, even now as indie games so are becoming so popular, still so fundamentally different from what you would consider to be a console game.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you can still have like a casual conversation with a platform holder about the relative merits of getting that game on that machine. That's just encouraging, you know, where it's not all just about money, because that's great. So
Yeah,
I don't wanna like, you know, have you delving too far into the future here, but you know, after you make sure that Ether One is running as good as it possibly can on the platforms it's currently on now, and you know, you've taken a little break. What's next for White Paper Games?
Oh, like we don't even want to. Like, I've had a few thoughts about the game design. I had a thought at Christmas, like it suddenly came to me what the next idea would be. And so I kind of spoke to a few guys at the studio, and everyone seems pretty pumped. And I've spoken to a few developer friends, and they said that we should definitely try out that idea. So I have a game design in mind, but we also, because the new Unreal Engine 4 just came out, we want to play around in that and see what kind of things we can do, and just, you know, just experiment. This how this game was created, and like you say, understanding our limitations of what we can do as a studio 2 or 3 years on. Our tech artist James Burton, who's in the conversation at the moment, he's been learning how to animate, so we'd be interested in doing some kind of animation.
Cool.
Anything like that. Yeah, just blank slate, really.
Another sort of different subject, but I wanted to make sure I asked about this during our hour. You work as a lecturer.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about what you teach.
Yeah, so I do 1 day a week at the University of Central Lancashire, and I teach games design because I graduated from the course on the BA, and then I later went on to do my master's there, and I felt like that course has given me everything. So I want to try and give them something back, and I teach the Unreal Engine, I teach basic game design, and it's really, really interesting and rewarding to do, because it's when you know in your head what you're doing from day to day, and even though we're still learning, we're still applying that to game design, but it's something completely different when you're saying out loud what is in your head. And it makes you evaluate your own work, and you're inspired as well, being in the different environment, and you like seeing what the students have created, and just giving feedback and bouncing ideas off each other, and it's just a really creative environment. So it's good just to take a step out of the studio for a day and do that.
That's awesome. You know, at the exact same time as you're designing games in a growing field, teaching game design is still something that's evolving in a very real way. Like there's no formula for this that's just set in stone yet. And so, like, what do you think is the secret to teaching game design? Obviously, it's something that you need to learn through practice. You just need to do it.
Exactly.
But you know, as far as creating like a pedagogical system for it, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that you don't need to go to university to get a job in games. Like you could quite easily build your portfolio from home and still get a job in the game industry. I don't think the university approach is just so you can get a piece of paper at the end of it. It's the skills that you taught while there. It's the I guess the industry pipeline. So if people are teaching themselves from home, they might be learning the wrong techniques, or they might be learning just a wrong workflow. So it just gets you straight to the point, learning the right workflow from the get-go, I guess. And then it's also about being in the space. I mean, you're with 30 or 40 other people that are in the exact same position as you. You're all hopefully going to be game designers or game artists in the future. And so you can start sharing ideas, and it's only when you start sharing ideas off one another. I mean, it's completely different than being sat at home and just focusing on your own thing, because you no matter how good of a designer or an artist you are, you're always going to benefit from having that external feedback. And then lastly, I'd say that we have a lot of industry contacts. Like I mentioned, TT Games. Right now, currently, we're doing a live brief from Arthur Parsons, who's a designer at TT Games, and the students get to have first-hand design test from the lead designer at TT. And we had Peter Field, who is a course alumni. He went to work at Naughty Dog on the Uncharted games and Last of Us, and now he's working at Media Molecule in the UK. And we get people just coming in and just talking to the students and giving them as much feedback. So just having those industry connections, like hopefully the students learning after the end of the 3 years will be in a really good place to tackle the industry.
Man, that is very cool. My own cousin is actually at a university here in the States called Drexel, and is in their game design program. And just listening to her talk about her workshopping process with other students is so exciting to just hear like that collaborative process being encouraged as part of the educational cycle at university. And
it's also a selfish thing as well, because you learn just as much from the students as they learn from you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm constantly bettering myself as a designer, and like I guess in a way, a team leader, how you're communicating with people, how direct you are with your communication, your feedback. Because I've learned, especially from working on Ether One, like when you say something, someone could interpret it 50 different ways. So it's about being concise with your communication as well.
All right, Richard has found a giant glowing rock.
Oh no!
In the depths.
I was gonna say we're gonna get to the end of the stream right at the kind of the most exciting part, most action packed, I guess.
Sam, what is happening?
That's an excellent question, and I might have to ask Pete some spoiler questions after our stream is done, just so I can be like, all right, so here's what I thought happened. Am I right? But actually, really quick, to go off of what you were just talking about teaching and everything, do you feel like now that you've released this game that your role as a teacher will be viewed differently, or that you'll approach it differently?
Well, I was actually joking last week that if this game completely failed, I wouldn't be able to show my face back on the course. It'd be like, right, well, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I don't know. You're only as good as the last game you made, and we made 1,000 mistakes making Ether One. It was our first ever game. We had no idea. We thought we knew at the start, but then we had no idea what we got ourselves in for, and we learned so much. And the same thing applies right now. Like, I'm speaking to you guys. We've just finished Ether One. If I listen to this interview in 2 or 3 years' time, I'll cringe at it and not know what I didn't know what I was talking about, and I'll have so much more experience. And I guess as long as you're constantly trying to better yourself, it'll only make you better. Did that answer your question? I think I might have went on a tangent there.
I think it answered my question.
Wow, we are really wrapping things up at sort of like the most insane part of the game. There are just doors appearing out of nowhere, and that was awesome.
Oh,
It's
the
almost
best.
as if he got stuck on purpose to extend the stream so that it ended at a perfect time.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Sinister shenanigans. Perfect dramatic pacing. That's what we do here on Joystiq Streams.
I started playing Ether 1 late at night, and like I said, the unnerving nature of the like sound design and everything is one thing, but like
Yeah.
that scene in particular just set me up for the rest of the game to always be aware that something at any moment could go wrong.
Yeah.
Well.
Hello. Can you guys hear me finally?
Oh my God, Richard!
Richard, where have you been?
I don't know.
Richard?
Mysterious caller.
I don't know what happened, but here I am. I had all these great questions I was going to ask you about memory techniques and mental roadmaps and whatnot, especially with the case.
Yep.
How if you organize things in your mind as though they're physical objects, it makes them easy to remember. Was that intentional?
It was really interesting, the feedback system of the case, and it wasn't intentional when I designed it. I wish I was clever enough to design it like that, but it's just a nice, I guess a nice bit of feedback from the design.
Okay.
It's just interesting how people use it and seeing how they organize their...
Yes. As you can see, everything I could pick up, I brought back here and put in the room.
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, well, I'm going to leave this shelf for important items, and this shelf over here is things that I know I'm never going to need, but I just want to store them here.
Yeah.
And, this is for this area, and this one's for that area.
So
it's just... It turned out to be a really good feedback system for the case.
So it's like the Elder Scrolls. It's like this shelf is for nothing but wheels of cheese.
Yeah, that's what people have been saying.
And one other question along these are sort of trend lines, but what do you think of Oculus Rift and the Project Morpheus and virtual reality in general? Because I think it would suit this game very well.
Yeah, so we briefly talked about the Morpheus stuff at the weekend with the Sony guys. Not really got too much more information on that, and as soon as we do, we'll chat to you guys about it. But as far as Oculus in the future, a lot of people are like, okay, so now Facebook have bought Oculus, what is going to happen? And I don't see it as something like, oh, now we're going to have to sign into Facebook to play every game. It's not going to be like that. And Oculus, the guys at Oculus are smart guys. They know that if they've signed a deal, it's for the right reasons, and they can make the most of Facebook's distribution, or whether it be getting a cheaper price for the head units or the contacts. They have enough money into that studio without Facebook. I just think they've seen it as a valuable contact to have, and it'll only better the implementation of VR in the future. And things like the Valve Dev Days, where they openly shared information about what they found out about the Oculus and what techniques are good, what techniques might not be so good. Like all the big studios, Sony, Valve, Oculus, they're all sharing their technology and sharing everything that they found. It's not as direct as, oh, we're all competitors. They just want to see good VR in the industry, and I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, cool. Me too.
Well, it is 1 minute to 5 p.m., which means we are unfortunately going to have to wrap things up here on Joystiq Streams. Pete, just so everybody knows, where can they go buy Ether 1?
Yeah, so you can buy it direct from our website, ether-game.com. It's also on Steam, GOG, the Humble Store, and also Gamersgate.
Awesome. And Pete, thank you so much for coming by and talking with us today. This has been really, really cool. I was excited to play Ether 1 before, and now I'm even more excited to dig in once I have a rig that I can play it on.
Yeah, honestly, I appreciate you guys taking so much time to stream a small studios game like ours. It's just so awesome to see, and we hugely appreciate it. It's given us some good exposure.
Well, hey man, any single time that White Paper Games has something coming up and we want to see it. So hopefully you will be back on the show sometime very, very soon.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Thank you.
Everybody watching out there, my name is Anthony John Agnello, Joystiq Community Manager. Richard Mitchell, Joystiq's reviews content director, has been playing and being flummoxed by either one's puzzles. And Sam Prell has been on the call. Sam is a Joystiq editor who wrote our review of the game. And you can catch Sam on the weekends at joystiq.com. And you can catch all of the Joystiq goodies that we publish on a daily basis at joystiq.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Google+. Just go to those places and search Joystiq with a Q, and you will find us. If you enjoyed today's stream and want more of this lovely action, we do it every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Joystiq Twitch channel. And every now and again, we sneak another one in there if there's a special occasion. We have a fun one coming up on Thursday. Joystiq Editor-in-Chief Ludwig Kitzman is going to be playing Trials Fusion, which is the latest in the series of motocross games where you basically fall on your face over and over
That looks
over
so
again.
awesome.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
So cool.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And not only are we going to be playing it, but we're going to be giving away codes to
Oh,
the
yeah.
beta. So we have some of those, and I am about to bomb the chat with all of these links.
Totally forgot. I'm gonna throw some codes into the chat as well.
Hey!
I honestly totally forgot. I was gonna do it throughout the stream, and then you guys got me talking, and then I totally lost track of everything. I had everything planned.
Well, look at that. Chat.
A good reward for the people who stick around.
Yep.
There you go, guys. There's one. I'm gonna post another one in a second.
And remember, you can make sure to go to whitepapergames.com, go to ether/game.com, and yeah, everybody, we will see you on Thursday. Thank you so much for coming out. Bye-bye.
Now, everyone come and let's crack open this virtual bottle of scotch.
Do it.
We can all use it.